In today's episode, we're creating a bunch of new enemies. Hello, and welcome to How to Create a Vampire Survivors Clone in Godot 4. In this episode, we're just going to be creating new monsters, but before we do this, I'm going to be going into our tornado script, and I'm just going to be adding a self argument, because it seems like I missed that. Because our signal has a object argument and we need to add our self into this, so we're just going to be doing that now. So we're going to be going into our 2D scene and going into our enemy spawner, and we're going to be seeing that we have this, and we just have one enemy. And this is our enemy kobold underscore weak. So I'm going to be clearing this just so it's completely free of this, and I'm also going to be renaming this enemy to enemy underscore kobold underscore weak. And so the idea behind this is that we're going to be creating a new diverse group of enemies. So I'm just going to be getting my references up. There we go. So, what are we going to be changing about our enemy kobold? Well, first of all, we're going to be making this a little bit smaller than it was in the past. So, in our scale, I'm going to be doing 7.5. And I'm going to be adjusting some of the collision shapes based on that. So, for starters, I'm going to be making this just a little bit smaller, the collision shape 2D. For the hurt box, I'm going to be making this a little bit smaller as well, just to fit the new size. That is a very loud truck. And then I am going to be going into our hitbox, and I'm just going to be, making it, actually, I think it was a good size before. So I'm just going to be leaving it like that. The next thing I'm going to be doing is adjusting the stats. So I'm going to be keeping the movement speed, going to be keeping the HP, going to be keeping the knockback recovery, and going to be keeping the experience. Something I am going to be doing, though, is with our hitbox damage. This is going to be very easy to forget, so I'm going to go into the code and add a new export variable, and we're going to be calling that damage, and I'm just going to make that equal 1 by default, and I'm just going to be making it so that I'm just going to do a onReady bar hitbox equals hitbox, and yeah, I'm just going to be making so that hitbox dot damage equals damage, which means I can just set the damage here rather than having to go into the hitbox and set it there, which I think will be much nicer to deal with. So we have our kobold enemy weak, and I'm going to duplicate this. And I'm going to be making a kobold enemy strong. So we're going to duplicate that there. We're going to be going into the script, and I'm just going to be changing the name here to strong. And the first thing we're going to be doing is, number one, scaling this back up to 1. And I'm going to be changing the sprite to a kobold strong. So I'm going to drag that in there, and you can see we've got a much more vicious looking kobold. So for starters, I'm just going to be making the collision shape a little bit bigger for this kobold. Going to be going into the collision shape for this hurt box. Going to be making this so that it fits. There we go. That looks pretty good. And with our hitbox, I'm going to be making this a little bit bigger as well. That works pretty well. So just going to do a Control S save, and we're going to be changing some of the stats. So I'm just going to see what the reference says. So I'm going to be making this about 40% quicker than the standard kobold. So I'm going to make that a speed of 28. I'm going to be doubling the HP as well. The knockback recovery, I'm happy to stay the same. The experience, I'm happy to stay the same. And the damage, I'm going to make this 2. Just so it's a little bit more of a scary kobold, which is all good. Now, I'm going to, once again, duplicate our kobold strong, and I'm going to be creating a cyclops. So we're going to duplicate that there, enter our scene, go into the sprite, type in cyclops, and just drag and drop the sprite in there, and it all seemingly fits in. I'm going to be dragging the hurt box just to be a little bit bigger as well. Going to be doing the same with the hitbox, just making it a little bit bigger. And I'll also do it for our collision shape 2D, just to be a little bit bigger as well. I'm also just going to move that, going to click on the collision shape, hold down Alt, and just move it into the center, just make it a little bit bigger, so it's going to be harder for them to stack. And we're going to save that there. Now, for our Cyclops, I want this to be a bit more slower and tanky, so I'm going to make this have a speed of 16. Going to make the HP 100. Going to be making the knockback recovery 10, so it's got a bit more knockback resistance. I'm going to give it, let's say, 5 experience for killing this, and I'll make the damage 5 as well. Oh, just going to do a Control S there, and then I'm going to once again duplicate this enemy Cyclops, and I'm going to be making this a, let's see, Juggernaut. I'm going to be making this a Juggernaut, which is going to be very similar to a Cyclops, but this is going to be kind of like a boss enemy. So, enemy Juggernaut, just going to be typing in Jug here, getting our Juggernaut, make sure that's selected, and I'm just going to be dragging and dropping the Juggernaut into here. It's kind of the same model, just with armor, so I'm just going to leave all of these things the same. Also, I'm going to be going back to enemy Cyclops and changing the name to Cyclops there, so that's all good. So we go back to the Juggernaut, double clicking that, and once again just going to type in Juggernaut, and so our Juggernaut's going to be a beast, and we're going to be making it have 40 movement speed, 300 HP, 20 knockback recovery. I'm going to make this give out 100 experience, and I'm going to make the damage 8 as well. And then I'm just going to be creating our final enemy, which I'm just going to call Enemy Super, and this is going to be the enemy that sort of ends the game. So I'm just going to type in Super here, enter that, we've got Super, so I'm just going to call it Super, and this is kind of going to be like our Grim Reaper enemy. So if I type in Giant Immobile New, I'm going to click on the sprite, and I'm going to drag and drop this here, and we're going to have to change a couple of things that we were previously doing. So number one, I'm going to be removing the H frames to 1 H frame, so that's all good in that. The next thing I'm going to be doing is changing how our walk animation works, and I'm just going to be removing this keyframe so it doesn't try to go to frame 2 when it doesn't. It's just going to kind of work the exact same. Now for our Enemy Super, I'm just going to see what I made it in my reference demo. I'm going to be making this 150 movement speed. I'm going to be making this just 900, like 9,999. Once again, knockback resistance, and we're going to be making the damage 20. And that's all good. The other thing I'm going to be doing is probably just reducing, well, I think I may just disable the collision box as well, just so the enemy super can more easily get to the player. And this is all of our enemies. And now we need to go back into our world and add it to our enemy spawner. So if we remember our enemy spawner, I believe that we needed to have 9 different, well, I need to add our spawn info classes into it. So I'm just going to make this 9, and now we just click on new spawn info class and we add information to it. So we're going to have it so that the first 30 seconds, I'm just going to type in enemies so we can get our enemies on an easy drag and drop basis. So for the first 30 seconds, I am going to want 1 small kobold to spawn every second. And then afterwards, I'm going to want 2. So I'm just going to make this start from 30 seconds all the way to 201 1 second. So we're just going to be spawning 2 kobolds after that. So we're just going to continually be spawning these small kobolds for until I believe it's 3.5 minutes. So in that time, I'm going to do 60 seconds here, and I'm going to be having from 1 minute to 3 minutes, I'm going to be having a strong kobold spawn every 2 seconds. So that should be good. And let's make it so that from 3 seconds to 3.5 seconds, let's spawn a Cyclops. And I'm thinking I'm just going to be spawning one every 3 seconds here. So the next one, I'm thinking we're just going to be spawning a couple more strong kobolds after that. So for 3.5 minutes to 4 minutes, we're going to be spawning kobold strong, and we're going to be spawning them 2 kobold strongs every second during this time period. So then I think we're just going to get some more Cyclops action. So 4 minutes to 4.5 minutes, we're going to be creating some more Cyclopses. Oh, I think I just added in the Juggernaut, so I'm just going to add it in there. Cool, all good, that's the Cyclops. I'm going to be making that 1 Cyclops every second. New spawn info. And I think for this, I'm just going to be adding our boss enemy at the 4th minute. So just make that time start, time end. Going to add in the Juggernaut, and we're only going to spawn 1 of these just to make sure that we have our Juggernaut at the end. And then I think for the final 30 seconds, because I'm only trying to make a 30-second game, we're just going to be adding some kobold strongs, and we're going to be spawning 4 every second. And then for our final one to end the game, I'm just going to be having this as 300, 300, going to be spawning our enemy super, and I'm only going to be spawning 1 of these. And this should make it so that as we play, the first 30 seconds are weak kobolds, 1 a second. The next 30 seconds to 3.5 minutes, we're going to spawn 2 of these, and then we're going to be spawning some strong kobolds, and the Cyclops. Anyway, I can go through this and you can just kind of see how we're layering the difficulty of the level. So if we play our game, hopefully we'll see that we actually kind of have a game. Our enemies are a bit smaller, and we changed the sprite rather than the enemy bodies side, and that's purely because the explosion is based off the sprite, and I mean it all just kind of works. So alright, we can see that we got the super enemy, and we haven't programmed in a def, but we can kind of see how this would work if we programmed in a def. I'm just going to be going to our super enemy quickly, and I am going to be making this sprite 5 times the size. Oh, that's V-frames, my bad. We're going to change that to there, go to transform, and make this 5 times the scale. And I think we're also going to just have to... So this is disabled. Yep, we're also just going to be making this box a little bit bigger. So it's just going to be a very big enemy. And the hitbox, well, I guess we'll just add it here just to make sure it's got a hitbox. Like that. All pretty simple. Just going to do a Control S on that, and if we want to test that change, maybe I'll just go into the enemy spawner, and I'm just going to make the time 299 to save, and yeah, we should be good, and we can just see that's what's going to happen. Otherwise, that's the end of the episode. Not much to explain. I don't think we really need a theory time on this because we've already explained our enemy spawner. Otherwise, we did get an error, which is just, oh yes, index p h frames. Let me just see what we can do with the enemy super on that one, which is the h-frame equals that. We get the animation player, and I think we're just going to remove that entirely. So now when we save it, it seems to have fixed the bug entirely. That's cool. All right, that's it. Bye. The enemy's damage is transferred to its hitbox damage with the ready function.